Infra Summit is obviously the place where we're speaking about today and tomorrow of our infrastructure and the sources of its financing. And when it turns to be the public infrastructure and public investment, the main source of financing in our country, I believe, is structural funds. And just now we have seen the perfect example of Rail Baltica, which is thinking about the only one possible way of financing, and it is structural funds, of course. But we all already know that it is going to be different in next financial perspective due to the fact that we have the Brexit, we have another amount of structural funds to be distributed for the cohesion policy, and for our countries there are also two big news. One is good and one is bad, as always happened. The good is that we are already quite developed after using the structural funds for 2 periods and updated and improved our infrastructure already. And the bad news is that due to this fact, we became less eligible for the same amount of structural funds, and we will need to look for other possibilities and our ways and maybe other alternatives to finance our infrastructure. And today we will try to understand whether the public-private partnership could be one of the possibility to do so, to replace the structural funds and to build the exit strategy from the dependence on the structural funds. And we also will try to discuss what would be the key success factors and maybe the main obstacles to do so. And I just would like to ask my colleagues to be efficient, loud, to speak quickly, because we're keeping audience, we're the last in this session and people are starving and sleeping already. Just please contact with the audience if you would like, be interactive, and let's start. And I would like to start, Neringa, with you, abusing the fact that you're my colleague, so you will be the first to speak today. And we are functioning at the PPP Competence Center already for 9 years. During these 9 years, we were discussing with a lot of institutions, about 100 projects we have seen, and we were trying to persuade them that maybe PPP would be solution, and very often we have seen the institution ending up with the structural fund support. And sometimes the amount available was not sufficient to solve the problem, to achieve the result. But still, institutions were sticking with the structural funds, believing that it is better and it is more quicker and it is more convenient for them. Why it is so? Maybe you can comment.
Thank you, Ekaterina. Really, I agree with you that the most public institutions still think that EU structural fund is always better because it is easy money. Shall the state apply the PPP method or develop infrastructure via traditional procurement and organized maintenance itself? This is an eternal question, especially in countries such as Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. The PPPs is not so widely spread in our countries, and our public sector is still thinking that it is very costly, long, and an official way for construction or creating new infrastructure. You know, most of our public institutions think that it is just additional money for investment. And of course, the big problem that the PPPs could not compete with the EU structure fund finance, which are both cheaper resources of financing. But the EU structure fund investment support is limited in initial investment. And usually we don't care about maintenance costing and about optimization of both life cycle costing and risk, meaning that we pay much more for maintenance exploitation when we're separating the costing of construction from the costing of maintenance. Moreover, we're concentrating only on the result of construction. We are ignoring the realistic demand of services or services quality standard that will never happen in PPP case. And secondly, the European structure funds are not forever. And more institutions in Lithuania start to understand that the PPP structure fund will decrease from 2022, and opportunity to finance infrastructure project will be limited. So it seems that three alternatives we have: to finance infrastructure with the state or municipality budget, to borrow money, or to attract private capital, to choose PPP. So our possibility to borrow money is limited concerning the fiscal discipline. Our budgets are limited also, so we are looking for PPP. Additionally, if the public institution transfer construction and availability risk to private partner, the new created assets will not be accounted on the state balance sheet. So this is not affected the state or municipality's budget deficit. And this is a top in Lithuania. So what we did, we already have the first PPP contract, which accounted off balance sheet, and we have changed our standard documents, and I hope that our next PPP contracts will be accounted off balance sheet. And it is a great achievement of our PPP team. Anyway, if PPP sector will become more open to PPP, the second issue are both private and public sector properly prepared for implementation of PPP. Firstly, is the state policy clear on which areas and in which volume can PPP be applied? Is there a strategy or any PPP program present? Is the legal regulation clear? Are the PPP projects analyzed? And have we learned from our mistakes? Secondly, does the state have sufficient capacity for PPP? Do we have any plan how to provide consultation, methodological and financial support for institution investigate PPP, implementing the PPP? And lastly, is the business clear? Understand what risk it undertakes in such project, and is it social responsible? So this is my answer.
Yes, it is quite difficult in our case, and I would like to switch to Martins, who is working in the similar institution like ours. It is Central Project Management Agency and Central Project Financing Agency, and you are also working in the age of the structural funds and PPP, and we did have some attempt of blending structural funds with PPP, but we did not love it, if to be honest. And my question to you would be, did you see the attempts to blend the funds with PPP in Latvia? And if not, what may be the reasons of avoiding to blend?
You hear me. Okay, so I have the short answer, and I have the long answer. Which do you want?
Short.
Short. We have none. Okay, that's the long answer. So I'm 37 years old. And I have my relationship with the PPP, because when the Cobalt asked me to come here, the PPP have not been in my agenda for, I guess, some 4 years. So my first thought that, what can I tell about this? So I'll tell the long answer. 2008, I was working in the Ministry of Finance, and we were creating the PPP law. And there was a big hope for the projects who will come and we will invest, and there was big appetite for investment, but you remember what happened in year 2008. It was crisis, of course. So we survived because of the European fund, actually, funds in Latvia. The second thing is that I was in 2011, I guess, in the Moldova. Who is from Moldova here? I think nobody. And I went to a city near the Romanian border. It was called Ungen, and the mayor of Ungen said that he has a lot of PPPs. And I asked for example, and he said that bus operator is like PPP project. And he also told about the PPP law, and of course he wasn't blending any EU funds with this project, but he basically called every service agreement as a PPP. So understanding of PPP is very different, and in basically every European country, nevertheless. And the third thing of my long answer is that 4 years ago I was in Singapore. I think there's also nobody from Singapore. And very interesting country, very rich country. And it was very, very interesting to hear almost every big infrastructure object is a PPP project. Stadium, waste management, water plant, cargo operators, port, metro station built by, and metro line built by Hyundai. And then I realized that I still have a hope for PPP because I saw a real PPP project. It was wow for me. For 4 months, I guess I was really very enthusiastic. But why is not blending? Because two things: experience. We don't have a full-time circle project. We have a law from, as I said, from 2009, I guess from 1st of March. And today is 11th of October 18, sorry. And we are still hoping that someone from the beneficiaries could make some homework and build some viable project ideas, because there is some, of course, appetite for investment, and it's normal. We need roads, we need health infra, we need education, schools, we need a lot of money for something. But the preparation time is 2-3 years, maybe more. So if we need in the next planning period, we will have the, I guess, from 21 till 27, the next period, the EU funds, we start to think about it today. I have in my project portfolio 4 big projects. Healthy infra, we have a green tram in Riga and 2 cities as well. We have a waste management project, which we complete the last period success. And 4th project, I guess it's, train electrification. So I haven't seen from public sector perspective the homework done. So we are still dealing with the beneficiaries who are in the preparation phase. We have 2 active projects. One is a waste management concession in a Riga city, and the second is a road across the Riga. So both projects are going pretty okay, I guess, but the homework hasn't been done yet. So I'm optimistic, but I see maybe PPP is gone from the fashion, but maybe not. I hear very carefully what Ignas said. I hope maybe PPP is a future in Rail Baltica, I guess. But seriously speaking, of course, it's a very, very great job should be done. And now I can only say that if someone wants in public sector blend something with the PPP, with the funds, it is a question of next year when the planning will begin. We will have a new government, I guess till November's mid, maybe in December. So government should decide where to invest, by which financial instruments, of course. And the next period, we will think we should do this homework during next year. That's my sorry for so long answer, but I wanted just to say this about this my personal experience.
Yes,
So.
but you raise a very good point. This long preparation, difficult preparation is quite don't please put your microphone. I will have another question to you right now because you have mentioned this preparation, and another issue, maybe the legal unclearness is also the problem for making PPP more smoother and more quicker. And you, the only one country from ours which had the experience of PPP law. And PPP law, in our understanding, will help us to solve some problem, but maybe we are mistaken. Just share with us shortly why you did the law and did it help, did it improve the situation with the PPP in Latvia?
Yes, in my previous answer, I touched also the question of PPP law. Of course, we have it. We have, I think, already translated it in English, and it is on web page. So it's a very big and long law, but of course law doesn't create a pipeline. So it creates a legal framework, quite difficult, I guess, because when the public partner with the consultant came to me and asked for some questions, what should we do, what are the framework for analysis, and etc., etc. Of course, it was very tough to answer because law also doesn't create an answers to a lot of questions. It just describes how we should do one step, second step, and third step. So we have a law, but it doesn't create a project because I guess the main thing is public sector should done the homework according to specific investment area. For example, if we need a better road, we always need better roads. In Latvia, we always need better roads. But we need to think about key performance indicators. And the Ministry of Transport, I guess, the Ministry of whatever ministry needs an investment, they should define what we need. And actually, we don't have only one PPP law. We have, I think, some 4 or 5 laws that describes procurement procedure. And we have some 3, maybe 4 or 5 cabinet regulations which describes how you should fill with the numbers, what should you write in different sections. So, of course, I'm as a central financing agency director, I give my full support to the public sector which have viable idea, and come to me and say, okay, we have calculations, we have maybe some idea about viable project. Then I'll take the maths, and I don't take the law. So I'm a lawyer. I studied law for 5 years, but in this area, law isn't helpful. And of course, we are working with the clients and with the investment needs. And with these 2 projects, we basically are now in the preparation phase. They're doing calculations, and they're doing, I think, pretty good, because it is challenging to create a viable PPP project. It is not something that we shouldn't know, but we don't know, but it's very challenging. And speaking about future, maybe we will have some 3rd project, but we haven't time. As previous speakers mentioned, that we are running out of time. We're always running out of time, and of course everybody can say, oh, you haven't done your homework, agency, but we are very supportive to these projects, but of course we should understand the viability of the project.
Yes, thank you very much for sharing. We will take into account the advices according to law. And now I would like to switch to Lina and ask, we've just heard about the attempt to have the law. We in Lithuania also putting a lot of effort to improve the legal environment of public-private partnership. And I've never heard about a certain attempt in Estonia, but just sometimes I see the news that you have some PPP project. I read in the internet, for example, about government e-cloud, which was presented like a very successful PPP project. And maybe you looking differently at this legal environment or understand PPP more wider than we do and don't try to regulate it. In your understanding, what is better for PPP? To have it strictly regulated, very clearly regulated, or just to have it more flexible and to leave more possibilities for each case to be developed in the very original way?
Thank you. It's a bit tricky question in that sense that I think that market doesn't even understand itself what it wants. But what do we understand as a PPP project? That's a very good question. Because I think market players have different views what is a PPP project. And quite often the thing that we advertise as a PPP project is just a simple service or building concession. And at least for my understanding, it lacks a bit the sharing of risks. So in case we just give someone a land plot and then ask them to build an office building and then rent it, maybe it's not the best example of PPP project. But and when I asked the ministry what do they think that whether for instance the adoption of and implementation of the concession directive has that created us a bit more clearer and better framework, then they said the same. What do we understand actually as a PPP project, because everybody has a different view on it. In 2016, actually, there was a study done, and then the market players were asked what would be the thing that could be improved. And actually, that was the point that was brought out, that better legislative framework would be one of the key issues. I think that actually the readiness from the state side is something we just don't have the projects. So maybe even the market is ready for the project, but when we asked about the plans from the state side, then they said that yeah, we are planning maybe a few office buildings to be reconstructed or built, but nothing more. So, and those are more like a building concession agreements, not classical PPP projects, or what can we call classical PPP?
Yes, you're right, with pipelines and clearness and the future. We also had quite a big expectation when introducing the new law on the concession, and in our country the law came in force a little bit later, but still came since this year we do have. And unfortunately, unfortunately just it happened so that in our countries we have quite a short history of the private sector at all. And our public sector used to provide all services, and it's still keeping providing these services or trying to establish its own company to do so, but not to open the space and for the market and to make the agreement with any private entity which could suggest the better solution for the same service delivery. And I would like to switch back to Neringa. You were working on this law on the concession in Lithuania with all of this expectation, and could you comment whether it really introduced new possibilities for the companies to compete with our historical municipal companies and state companies providing the services maybe more efficiently?
Thank you, Ekaterina. It's a very good question, and I think that it's a very important issue for all EU countries. Actually, concession is not new thing in Lithuania. By the way, we have the first concession agreement was concluded in Lithuania at 1863, and it was the Vilnius street lighting concession contract. At this moment, yeah, and we're still looking forward for this project. Yeah, at this moment we have 45 concession agreements and 3 PPP or PPI contracts, and we are waiting for 2 more PPP contracts. However, the new regulation on concession is a really big challenge for both public and private sector. Speaking about the new directive, Lithuania decided to apply even more strict regulation than the directive for reason. For example, we don't use some exceptions which specified in directive, specifically the so-called in-house agreements. in Lithuania are not allowed in-house agreements. This means that government and municipalities are not allowed to establish their control entities to provide economic services or to perform commercial activities without competitive or concession procedure, or to transfer to existing control entities economic service in such area like waste management, tourism, sport, heating, electricity production or supply. Moreover, the local self-government law and competition law have been changed to ensure the implementation of law on concession. And these changes provide clear limitation to municipalities to transfer economic services to existing or new control entities. So I think that these changes provide new possibilities, new space for market to compete with public institution entities, control entities, offering more effective services. And of course, we face with big inertia and resistance because public sector, especially in municipalities, they love their control entities so much. They love. So I think that we need to give some time, like with the public procurement. Now nobody is trying to purchase services, goods, or works without procurement procedure. So I think that we will have the same situation in concession. Yeah.
So we will just get used to the new form and just use it in our daily life. It is a good hope. Let's keep it. And I would like to come back to Lina, because three of us here were speaking as a public sector representative, and we see the life by public sector eyes, and we are presenting our attempt to be better, to be more open, to be more flexible. And could you comment the situation from the point of view of private consultants? What can we do, and whether the private sector is ready to the more intensive partnership? What does it need to become ready, and what we can do as public sector to build this trust and to provide more possibilities for the partnership?
As for Estonian perspective, I think if there would be any projects where to invest, that would be already a very good start, because I think that the private sector should be ready. And I think, as you mentioned, homework, if the project is well thought of and well prepared, then this is what the private sphere actually looks for. And well, when I mentioned the study that there is the legal framework that's necessary, then I think that we do have a framework that we can use. So now let's start using it.
Maybe last question to Neringa, as we maybe put the biggest effort of all three countries to push the PPP. We have introduced the pilot programs, we did the pilot cases, we did a lot of mistakes, probably more than our colleagues in this process, and also had a chance to learn something from this process. Maybe you can just very shortly say what is, in your view, the main three lessons learned and what we need to have PPP happening successfully to the end, into the financial closure.
Almost all our pilot PPP projects led to failure for different reasons. Unfortunately. Anyway, I would like to share with you some key factors that could help to increase the efficiency of the PPP. Firstly, strong project ownership and leadership. We have different examples, bad and good, when leadership was a key success factor or absence of leadership. Yeah, let's fail. It's our 4 prisons PPP projects. It's a horrible experience, I'm sorry. And what we have learned that project owner must clearly understand the purpose of PPP project and push, in a good sense, push the project. And when the project just the idea, it would be too nice to try. Please stop, and please don't waste time and your resources. Well, the second key factor, strong technical team. It's very important. Strong technical team that understand the market, the potential pool of bidders, their requirements, their limitation. And it's furthermore, it's more important in the project contract, in the PPP contract implementation phase. And the third, standardization of process and documents. And I think that it was the best measure for institution to help, not only for the institution, for investor to understand, clearly understand all process, all requirements. And this is good assistance to control all process. So these 3 factors, I think that it's very important to get success, to get good PPP project.
As we agree absolutely with Martin, yes, and you would like to comment?
I'd like to tell one not sad but hopefully nice story. I guess it was in 2009 when a former Latvia's radio chef, Zintars Kolāds, came to me, and Latvia's radio have, I guess, some 4 or 5 channels, and they planned the second channel, which translates, we have this Schlager music in Latvia, very popular. People listen to this, sometimes me too. And they planned, it was a cash cow for them, and they planned to make a concession of it. And the idea was that radio lacks funds. Of course, everybody needs money, and the radio came and said, we need money, we will make a concession of it. They have also a specific, I guess, paragraph in their law that they could do so. And the good thing was that the project was bad, but the good thing, they get the money from the state budget. I guess some 300,000, it was in Lats, we now have euro. So it was the good thing that one state official came and said, okay, we need something for the PPP, and Minister of Finance in my person said, sorry, this is not viable. And then he came to the Prime Minister and said, we need just money. We made an analysis, we need money. So the ministry gave him money. So it was the good story. Sometimes this homework, what you are doing in the PPP area, it helps for other things. That's the good story about Latvia's radio.
I agree that before understanding whether your project is good and needed for somebody and useful and making the social economic value, you shall not start thinking about any partnership, not mislead market, not mislead yourself, and not getting into the long procedure with the huge costs and with the potential failure. We probably all understand it, but I believe that there are no unique answer and one receipt how to accelerate the PPP. We all did in the different ways, but still, I believe it could be considered as one of the possibilities. At least in our state, we see already institutions turning to the PPP. I believe it will happen also in Latvia and Estonia, or already happening. We just don't know. And maybe it will be the best solution for some cases. We saw different models and different types. PPP is only one of them. It's not the purpose itself, but when it is good for the project, it shall just happen successfully. And thank you very much for sharing all this information. If there are some questions from the audience, we are ready to answer, or we can do it during the lunch. Okay?
There is one question.
I mean, we have some, I'm Gedros Ruškis from EIB, European Investment Bank. So we have some attempts, some of them are not very successful, some are more successful in Lithuania. We see some pipeline beginning in Latvia. One project is being procured soon. And if it's successful, maybe more to come. And Estonia, at least my personal perception is that it's like usually it's one step ahead is pro-business. We have Tallinn Ports IPO, and for Klaipėda Seaport probably it's 10 years ahead to do something like that. But regarding PPPs, this private initiative, there is no attempts at all from Estonian government. So what is the reasons behind this? Is it they do not want to commit to some kind of big commitments, or what is the real reason behind?
The initiative from the government side may be slow, but the initiative from the local government side was actually very high already 12 years ago, 13 years ago, when quite many local governments actually initiated very many projects. One of the Tallinn school project, for instance, where over 10 schools were renovated, together with the obligation to actually provide maintenance to the buildings. So that was kind of, for my understanding, a classical PPP. What could have happened extra was that the private company would have taken over the school service itself as well, but that was kept to the local government. Then we have municipality houses in Tallinn as well. Quite many sport halls were renovated with that. But the state has been quite reserved regarding PPP projects. So I'm not exactly certain what's the reason behind it, but I would say that maybe that the state has had other possibilities to fund their projects, and the local governments just needed this PPP project both to keep the projects maybe off the balance, and then to actually acquire some extra knowledge. So I think that maybe the state is now kind of maybe thinking a bit more towards that, but I'm not so sure. Their thinking at the moment is that they just maybe renovate a few offices, but that's it.
I have a question back to Gedros. Why are you not paying attention of the small projects which are happening? We have tens of them, Estonians have tens of them, but they are so small size that the European Investment Bank just never seen them. Believe that there is nothing happening in Baltic states, but we are small states with the small projects and we have a lot of them. Don't ignore them, please.
Put in your report. It's not viable as CPP. So it's one side, and another side is being such huge institution. We cannot do it. Like it's very sour policies that the usual previously was the usual transactions, not transactions, but loan size is like 50 million euros minimum due to the obvious economic reasons, etc. Now we go to smaller transactions, but still PPP of 5 million euros, so it's not really viable because you need to have good advisory team on both sides, and those could easily run like 1 million euros. So that's a lot of transaction cost, and okay, I know that such PPPs are done in Lithuania and in other countries, but then there is questionable quality and etc.
So, if there are no more questions, we can just allow people to have the lunch.
Okay, many thanks. Can we give a round of applause to our panelists?